final chapter. On the day we were supposed to get our marriage certificate, my girlfriend claimed she was busy and stood me up again. When I returned home, I received her marriage certificate with her male assistant. The registration date was today. I smiled and placed the marriage certificate on the desk. I turned around and called it quits. The next moment, my girlfriend's call came in. Her tone was impatient. "What are you doing, Wenjuan? Grow up, stop playing these childish games." I was just about to speak when I heard the assistant crying on the other end of the phone. "Ryan, brother Yuan, did you misunderstand us? You should hurry home. I can manage on my own. Don't worry about him. All he does is play these annoying tricks all day. You're the most important thing right now." My girlfriend's comforting voice reached my ears. The call ended. I was completely heartbroken. I was packing my things, planning to move out, when my girlfriend, Liu Ryan, walked in, shielding her little assistant, Zuo Zikang. "Wenjuan, hurry up and make some sweet soup." Zikang just fainted from low blood sugar. Liu Ryan's gaze was fixed on Zuo Zikang. Her face was full of worrying. She didn't even raise her head and loudly ordered me. I looked up and glanced at them, but I didn't respond as I used to when welcoming her home. Instead, I continued with what I was doing. Liu Ryan saw I didn't respond. Only then did she frown and lift her head. "Wenjuan, do you not understand human language?" When she saw what I was doing, she paused for a moment. Then her face darkened. She quickly walked over. "Wenjuan, what do you mean? Packing your bags, you really intend to break up with me, don't you?" I didn't stop what I was doing. I spoke lazily. "Is there even a fake way to break up?" Liu Ryan was choked by my indifferent attitude. Her eyes glared coldly at me. "What do you mean?" I curled my lips. My gaze quickly flicked over to Zuo Zikang. I spoke mockingly. "Didn't you bring your husband home? I'd better hurry and make room for him." "Wenjuan, what are you talking about?" "I don't understand." Liu Ryan visibly grew tense. Her eyes began to dart around. I snorted and threw the marriage certificate at her face. "Liu Ryan, what's your game? Brave enough to do it, but not to admit it?" Upon seeing the two marriage certificates, she completely panicked. She roared in shame and anger. "Wenjuan, what kind of trick are you playing? How did you get these marriage certificates?" I looked at her with a smirk that didn't reach my eyes. I didn't say a word. In the tense silence, Zuo Zikang spoke with a sob in his voice. "Zuding, I sent it to the wrong place by mistake, and because of me. You and brother Yuan argued over our marriage registration. It's all my fault." As he spoke, he even started to sob. "Zikang, you're not at fault." Liu Ryan's expression changed instantly. She walked towards Zuo Zikang with great concern, carefully shielding him as they entered. "Since you already know, I won't hide it from you anymore. Zikang was diagnosed with late-stage stomach cancer a few days ago. He doesn't have much time left. His last wish was to marry me. You know that Zikang has been by my side since he graduated, always helping me through thick and thin. He's not just my assistant, he's also my friend. When a friend is in trouble, I can't just stand by and do nothing. After ZICHENG ... we can go get our marriage certificate. Wenjuan, you surely can understand me, right?" Liu Ryan looked at me with an expectant gaze. I withdrew my gaze and replied disdainfully, "He's your assistant and friend, but also your husband. If there's something, just discuss it with him. Discussing it with me is pointless." Seeing my resolute attitude, she furrowed her brows once more. "Wenjuan, do you have to be like this? How can you be so heartless? I already told you, I will marry you. Does it matter if it's sooner or later? Zikang is a patient. Why are you so cold towards him?" Zuo Zikang cooperated by lowering his head, tears continuously streaming down. I stopped what I was doing and looked up at the two of them standing side by side. Their synchronized act was a perfect match. I suddenly laughed out loud. Watching my former lover care so tenderly for another man. It would be a lie to say my heart didn't hurt, but our relationship had already been tainted. I didn't want to entangle myself with her anymore. I'm cold? I'll leave right away so I won't be an eyesore to him. I nodded and replied. Then I quickly pulled my suitcase and left. As I passed by Liu Ryan, she suddenly grabbed my arm, her words filled with ruthlessness. Zi Wen Yuan. Know when to stop. Apologize to Zikang right now, and I'll pretend this never happened. Otherwise, I cut her off with a sneer. Otherwise what? Never come back begging you, is that it? Does he even deserve my apology? Liu Ryan's face turned completely grim. The warning in her voice was unmistakable. Zi Wenyuan, that's enough. I'm giving you one last chance. Apologize to Zikang. Or don't blame me for turning hostile. In the midst of our standoff, Zhuo Zikang tugged at Liu Ryan's wrist. He pretended to be understanding. Zuding, don't be angry with Brother Yuan. Brother Yuan isn't wrong. It's all my fault. I'm the one who should leave. Seeing this, Liu Ryan immediately let go of me and went to comfort him. Taking advantage of the distraction, I pulled my suitcase and left without looking back. Before I could get out the door, Liu Ryan's cold voice came through clearly once more. Zi Wenyuan, if you walk out that door today, don't ever think of coming back. I want to see what kind of beautiful life you, a useless person, can have without me. I paused in my steps. I turned back to look. Not because of reluctance, not out of regret, but just to see clearly the face of the girl I once loved so deeply. To see how hateful it had become at this moment. After seeing clearly, I turned and left without looking back. Liu Ryan was once my unattainable love, and also my whole world. She was always the high and mighty young lady of the Li family, while I was just a small person, lowly as dust. I met her in college, but unfortunately, we had no interaction. Every day, I would follow her footsteps to class. And then after class, 2 meals, and on walks, eventually just to see her one more time. I decided to study hard and switched majors to the school where she was enrolled. Before today, the thing I was most grateful for was my decision to change my major back then, because that decision led to the development of my relationship with Liu Ryan. At that time, the professor told us, if you don't want to fail at the end of the term, form your own team and run data through the experiments yourselves. I was always a top student in the class. Liu Ryan rejected everyone who tried to get close to her, but she took the initiative to ask to team up with me. I still remember how excited I was then. Looking at her beautiful and delicate face, my heart was racing at 100 beats per minute. My cheeks were so red they could have boiled an egg. Liu Ryan propped her chin up with her hand, her eyes filled with a bright smile. She teased, "Classmate Z, if you keep staring, the bell for the end of class will ring." The whole class burst into laughter. I suddenly snapped back to reality, lowered my head, and felt utterly embarrassed. But Liu Ryan had no intention of mocking me. She stepped in and said, "Stop laughing, everyone. Being able to team up with classmate Z is my good fortune." And just like that, my relationship with her grew closer and closer. In the end, Liu Ryan even took the initiative to confess to me. We spent 3.5 wonderful years together in college, as the couple everyone envied. But despite being in love, I never neglected my studies. I always maintained a full scholarship, and even received an offer from an international company after graduation. But Liu Ryan was the only daughter in her family. She had to go back home to inherit the family business. Seeing the sorrow in her eyes at the thought of separating from me, without hesitation, I turned down a job opportunity that most people would never even dream of in their lifetime. I joined Liu's company with her. I helped her establish a firm footing in the Liu family business, offering my efforts and strategies. To avoid people saying I relied on connections, I simply started from the very bottom. Our relationship became more stable over time. I felt the time was right and proposed to her. But every time I proposed, she rejected me. When I asked her why, she always gave vague responses. It was later that I found out that Zuoza Kang had already entered her life by then. Zuoza Kang was younger than me, more energetic, and knew how to make her happy. Gradually, the conversations between Liu Ryan and me shifted from all topics under the sun to her daily moments with Zuoza Kang. I noticed her change. I tried multiple times to save and mend our relationship, but her heart had long drifted away from me. No matter what reasons I gave to keep her, as long as Zuoza Kang called, she would rush to him without hesitation. She gave all the care meant for me, all the patience I had, to Zuoza Kang. Her attitude towards me became nothing but coldness and complaints. Yet, despite all this, I still didn't want to let go. I proposed to her again. This time, she agreed. But on the day we were supposed to get our marriage certificate, she left me for Zuoza Kang again. The moment I saw their marriage certificate, I knew. This time, I truly needed to wake up. Returning to the old, shabby apartment my parents left behind, leaning against the wall beneath my parents' portraits, I could no longer hold back and burst into tears. After letting it all out, I simply tidied up the place. I went out again to buy some daily necessities. Then I settled in, lying on the same bed from my childhood. My restless heart suddenly found peace. I slept the best I had in a long time. No need to worrying if Liu Ryan was in a good mood. No need to worrying if Liu Ryan had enough to eat or warm clothes to wear. In my dreams, I saw my parents who had passed away long ago. I didn't even get a chance to talk to them properly. But in the next moment, the dream turned bitter again. Liu Ryan in my dream questioned me why I had such a hostile attitude toward Zuoza Kang. She grabbed my clothes, demanding I apologize to Zuoza Kang. A flame instantly rose in my heart. I was just about to retort when a sudden, urgent ringing woke me up. Drowsily, I answered the phone. The next moment, I heard Liu Ryan's furious questioning voice. Wenyu, where the hell are you? Did you forget today is the company's signing banquet? Everyone else arrived in pairs, and my partner is nowhere to be found. Are you doing this on purpose to embarrass me? I was fully awake. I held back my impatience and moved the phone away. Think whatever you want. Wenyu. Liu Ryan suddenly raised her voice. Then I heard the sound of footsteps in the receiver. She must have moved to a different spot to take the call. She sighed. Then her tone softened. Wenyu, today is a big day for the company. Stop making a fuss, okay? Hurry up and come over. The signing ceremony is about to begin. And after the banquet tonight. I'm trying to explain this to you properly. She spoke to me in a tone that sounded almost like she was negotiating. For a moment, my grip on the phone relaxed. But before I could speak, I heard a burst of teasing laughter coming from her side. Assistant Zuo looks like a groom today. He really does. If you look closely, Assistant Zuo and our literally always look like a perfect match today. Zuoza Kang, sounding a bit shy, replied, Stop joking around. I just dressed casually. Seeing that I hadn't responded for a while, Liu Ryan called out to me again. I let out a sneering laugh. Liu Ryan, isn't your partner already in place? Don't contact me again. Without waiting for her response, I quickly hung up the phone. Because I knew if I didn't hang up now, I wouldn't be able to hold back my sadness any longer. I didn't want to reminisce about the past, but 5 years of memories had already seeped deep into my life. So many days and nights I spent loving her. I never thought about how I would live without her. The person she used to be would put me first, would promise me forever. But the person she is now no longer needs me. Tears fell from the corners of my eyes onto the pillow. I woke from the memories of the past with a start. The pain in my heart was unbearable. But before I could process my emotions, the door was pounded on violently. My immediate reaction was that she had come. My body moved faster than my mind, and by the time I opened the door barefoot, I realized how ridiculous I had just been. Wen Yuan, it really is you. You're back. And Qian from the neighborhood committee was delighted to see me. She enthusiastically patted my shoulder. Yes, Aunt Qian, I'm back. Is there something you need? Oh, right. I got carried away chatting with you. And Qian's expression turned serious. Wen Yuan, you'd better go downstairs and take a look. Right now, several black cars are blocking the road at the corner, saying they're looking for you. Our community already has narrow streets, and now the neighbors can't even get in or out properly. I frowned and followed Aunt Qian downstairs. At the front, I saw Ryan's black car parked at the corner. When she saw me, her bodyguard opened the car door. Liu Ryan stepped down in her high heels. I turned to leave. Behind me, Liu Ryan shouted coldly, Wen Yuan, stop right there. I ignored her. I quickened my pace. But in the next second, her personal bodyguard blocked my path. Wen Yuan, what do you mean by this? Liu Ryan chased after me in her high heels. Without any warning, she slapped me across the face. You're too much. I turned my face to look at her. The love in my eyes had vanished. She was stunned for a moment. Then she spoke coldly. Do you know I left all the guests behind just to come pick you up? Hurry up and come with me. I didn't want to respond, but the alley in the community was gradually filling with curious neighbors. As much as I didn't want to stay with Liu Ryan, I wanted even less to be the center of attention. After weighing the pros and cons, I, still in my pajamas, walked toward Liu Ryan's car. The rear window rolled down, and Zuo Zikang, dressed in formal attire, apologized to me with a guilty look. Brother Yuan, I'm sorry. I wasn't feeling well. So Zuying asked me to sit in the back with her. I'm sorry, you have to sit in the front. Liu Ryan came up behind me. Seeing my gaze fixed on Zuo Zikang in the back seat, her expression turned a bit awkward. She opened the back door for me, trying to explain on behalf of Zuo Zikang. Zikang wasn't feeling well, so I took him out for a little drive. Wen Yuan, you don't mind, right? The back seat is big enough. The three of us can sit together. I quickly withdrew my gaze and willingly got into the front passenger seat. I don't mind. Liu Ryan was clearly displeased by my attitude. She opened her mouth, but in the end, said nothing. She slammed the back door shut and coldly ordered, drive. As the car started, the curious neighbors followed along, walking beside the car. Liu Ryan's face darkened even more because of this. She spoke in a harsh tone. I never thought that such a filthy, messy place could still have people living in it. To come to a place like this wearing a haute couture dress. What bad luck! Hearing her words, I glared at her through the rearview mirror and mocked. If Miss Lee is so distinguished, then today, you really shouldn't have come. You! Zuo Zikang, noticing the situation, spoke up pitifully. Zuding! Is it because I came along that I made Brother Yuan angry again? Maybe I should switch seats with Brother Yuan. Liu Ryan glared at me through the rearview mirror. She spoke viciously. Just stay right there. Let's see what he can do to you. I pretended not to hear her, retracted my gaze and closed my eyes to rest, saving my energy for the tough battle ahead. Liu Ryan, if you won't let me go so easily, then don't blame me for using my own tricks. The car stopped at a hotel under the Liu Group's banner. Liu Ryan, still fuming with anger, got out of the car and left as soon as it stopped. Her bodyguard followed closely behind me, so she wasn't worried that I would try to escape at the last minute. After I slowly got out of the car, Zuo Zikang approached me with a mocking smile. His usual timid demeanor had changed completely, and he arrogantly blocked my path. Z when you on, don't get too comfortable. Zooting is my wife now. You're just a disgraceful third party now. Just you wait. In the end, the one who will be standing beside her with a smile will be me. Well then, congratulations, Assistant Zuo. You finally turned from a sparrow into a phoenix. I clapped my hands, full of mockery as I brushed past him and walked inside. I knew very well that today, Liu Ryan insisted on having me attend the signing event, not because she cared about me, but because the leading company signing with Liu Group today was a deal I had negotiated. The leadership of that leading company only recognized my ability and specifically instructed that all business dealings between the two companies should be handled by me alone, or else there would be no deal at all. If I didn't show up today, if that leading company realized their words were being ignored, that multi-billion project would be doomed to fail. So, Liu Ryan had to lower herself and personally come to the slums to pick me up. As soon as I reached the entrance of the banquet hall, Liu Ryan walked over from the side. She furrowed her delicate brows, looking up and down at my cheap pajamas, her face full of disdain. Are you planning to attend like this? How embarrassing! After her sarcastic remark, she dragged me into the backstage dressing room. She picked out a suit that matched the white dress she was wearing and threw it at me. Then she haughtily ordered the makeup artist, "Make him presentable, and be quick about it." I felt like a doll, being pulled and pushed by different people. Looking at myself in the mirror, I hardly recognized myself. "Now, you look somewhat decent," Liu Ryan said, standing behind me with her arms crossed, critically commenting. Hearing her tone, I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Honestly, when it comes to these superficial things, I genuinely don't care. After all, once tonight is over, I'll be leaving her world. Since tonight is the last night, how others see me, I truly don't care. Once I was all dressed up, Liu Ryan forcefully linked her arm with mine and walked into the banquet hall. The lights immediately focused on us as we stepped in. The surrounding conversations and clinking of glasses came to a halt. I felt a bit dazed, thinking this felt more like a wedding scene for me and Liu Ryan. Sure enough, the next second, the host's voice confirmed my suspicion. He cleared his throat and loudly proclaimed blessings, reciting vows of eternal love. Then he added, "The signing event will take place after Miss Lee's engagement ceremony." As the host's last word fell, I finally snapped out of my shock. I forcefully tried to shake Liu Ryan off, but she clung tightly to my arm. "Z Wenyuan, you'd better cooperate with me today." Her tone was filled with an undeniable warning. I let out a mocking laugh and used all my strength to shake her off. In the astonished and curious gazes of everyone around, I calmly spoke. Today's engagement ceremony is nothing but a play directed and performed by Miss Liu. I was not informed, and I do not acknowledge it. There is no longer any relationship between Miss Liu and me. She and her assistant, Mr. Zuo, have already registered their marriage. I do not make a habit of breaking up families. Finally, I solemnly declare, from this day forward, I am no longer an employee of the Liu Group. I will no longer be involved in any future business of the Liu Group. And lastly, I smiled at Liu Ryan and said, I have resigned. The penalty fee has been transferred to your account. From now on, we will never meet again. Liu Ryan stood frozen in place, her hands clenched tightly around her dress as she stared blankly at me. Then, I turned and walked away. The representatives of the signing party, seeing I wasn't joking, angrily smashed their wine glasses, leaving behind a comment, "What a joke." They left in a grand exit. All the small companies invited to the banquet stayed behind, eagerly waiting to see what would happen next. No one left. Just as I was about to push open the door, Liu Ryan finally came to her senses. She started shouting and running toward me while issuing orders. Z Wenyuan, stop right there. Once again, I was blocked by her bodyguard. I had no choice but to stop. Turning back to look at her, Liu Ryan grabbed my arm. Her voice filled with grievance. Wen Yuan, how could you do this to me? Weren't we clear about this? Just then, Zuo Zikeng walked over. He looked at us, tugging at each other, and carefully spoke. Zuding, I feel unwell. Can you stay with me, please? Liu Ryan didn't spare him a glance. She looked at me with a hopeful expression. Wen Yuan, stop making a fuss, and stop being angry with me, okay? The scene fell into a moment of silence. Everyone was frantically recording with their phones. I kindly reminded her. But Liu Ryan acted as if she hadn't heard, still clinging to me, refusing to let go. Suddenly, I lost my temper. I sneered. Liu Ryan, you might not care about your dignity, but I care about mine. You kicked me aside and registered your marriage with someone else. I let go and moved on. But now you're holding on and refusing to let go. What exactly do you want? No! Wen Yuan, I've always loved you. I'll divorce Zuo Zikeng right away. We can get married immediately. At this point, Liu Ryan realized I wasn't joking. Tears started streaming down her face uncontrollably. She looked up at me with hope in her eyes. I stared back at her with a blank expression, my impatience nearly spilling out into words. There was a time when just one of her tears would make me feel guilty for days. But now, seeing her crocodile tears, all I felt was utter disgust. I spoke coldly. Liu Ryan, you truly have no heart. Your newlywed husband is standing there, desperately waiting for you to turn back to him. And yet, you're here, pulling at me in front of him without end. As a man, how humiliated must he feel right now? As I spoke, I glanced at Zuo Zikeng with a look of provocation. Hearing my words, Liu Ryan furrowed her brows tightly, signaled for her bodyguards to take Zuo Zikeng away. No matter how loudly Zuo Zikeng shouted, she didn't spare even a single glance at him. She just kept crying, repeatedly assuring me, Wen Yuan, my future husband will only be you. I was wrong this time. I won't do it again. To be honest, if I had heard these words in the past, I would have given her my life. But now, I shook her off with utter disdain. The Liu family has a big business empire. You wouldn't want it to be ruined under your watch, right? If you don't care about the Liu Group's stock price plummeting, I don't mind staying here and pulling with you endlessly. As soon as I finished speaking, Liu Ryan finally, with trembling hands, let go. I pushed open the door and quickly walked away. I didn't expect Liu Ryan to still chase after me. Her high heels had already been lost in the rush, leaving a trail of bloody footprints along the way. I quietly withdrew my gaze, waiting in silence for the arrival of the ride-share car. When she saw me, she ran toward me, trying to throw herself into my arms. But upon seeing the coldness in my eyes, she stopped in her tracks with a look of grievance. Wen Yuan, I've thought it through. Nothing is more important than you. My father is there for Liu Group. He will take care of things for me. She spoke with great sincerity, and I understood the hidden meaning behind her words. Seeing that I didn't respond with more sarcasm, she cautiously walked over and took my hand. Looking up at me with tears brimming in her eyes, she pouted slightly. Wen Yuan, my feet hurt so much. I didn't answer. My gaze shifted past her to look behind her. If your feet hurt, you should go complain to your legitimate husband, not drag things out with me, your ex. Hearing my words, Liu Ryan's emotions flared up, but she quickly calmed down again. She pushed her look, wrapping her arms around my waist. Wen Yuan, stop being so sarcastic with me. I know I was wrong about this. I truly know my mistake now. I've already chased after you. Can't you feel my love for you? I looked down at her quietly for a moment. Her love for me? No, it wasn't. The eldest daughter of the Li family had always been the one others coddled and flattered. My constant rejection had only sparked her desire to conquer. But once she succeeded, I would become something tasteless to her again. Your husband is watching you. Aren't you going to comfort him? Making him your legitimate husband show such a heartbroken expression. Isn't very nice, is it? Liu Ryan suddenly turned her head, and Zuo Ziking immediately stepped forward to hold her. Zuding! Don't go with him. Let's go home, okay? Liu Ryan, don't do anything that would make me look down on you. Once you've made your choice, there's no room for regret. I continued to twist the knife. Liu Ryan, from now on, I never want to see you again. Maybe my repeated refusals hurt her pride. She pushed Zuo Ziking away and took his arm instead. Her face darkened as she glared at me. Ziwen Yuan, you're really shameless. When I spoke to you kindly, you didn't appreciate it. You just had to make me angry. Fine. If you want to never have anything to do with me again, let's see if any company dares to use someone Liu Group publicly discards. I shot back. Then let's wait and see. That very night, the drama from the Liu Group's banquet hit the top of trending news. My phone number was somehow leaked, and that same night, my phone was bombarded with calls from gossip-hungry reporters until it died. I blocked one batch of numbers, but another immediately came through. Having no other choice, I went to the service center early the next morning and canceled the couple's number I shared with Liu Ryan. Finally, peace returned to my world, just as I was planning to settle into a quiet life. Liu Ryan tried the same trick again. She led 3 cars to block the entrance of my community completely, threatening me to leave with her. She said she would live in her car and not leave. Now, I was no longer afraid of becoming the neighbor's entertainment. I was only worried that such a commotion would attract reporters to stake out. If that happened, my peaceful days would truly be over. Fueled with anger, I got into her car. When she saw me, a flicker of light flashed in Liu Ryan's eyes, but it quickly returned to calm. I noticed it, quietly observing her. Miss Liu, have you forgotten what you said that day? What business do you have coming to find me today? My tone was distant and cold. She lowered her gaze and softly replied, Wen Yuan, my father is in the hospital. He wants to see you. She no longer had the arrogance she showed that night, so I remained silent and didn't say anything further. The journey to the hospital was wordless. Liu's father lay on the hospital bed, his face pale. Father! Liu Ryan stood slightly behind me, twisting her fingers as she softly called out. Liu's father responded faintly, but even that single syllable carried a strong sense of pressure. I glanced sideways and saw Liu Ryan lower her head even more. I knew these little movements were signs of her anxiety, her trademark gestures when she was scared. If it were before, I would have immediately taken her hand, told her not to be afraid, that I was there for her. But now, I stepped aside, casually sat on the leather sofa, and met the gaze of the head of the Liu family without fear. Mr. Li, what do you need from me? Let's get straight to the point. I believe Mr. Z is aware of the recent plummet in Liu Group's stock. Today, we've invited Mr. Z over, with no other request than for you to marry my daughter as soon as possible. After Liu's father finished speaking, he covered his mouth and began coughing incessantly. Although he was weak, the indisputable tone in his words was quite clear. The nurse beside him stepped forward to pat his back. Liu Ryan wanted to move closer, but she hesitated, instinctively turning to me for help in the sunlight. I quietly averted my gaze and spoke calmly. Is the Ruin Group giving the Liu Group a hard time? The Ruin Group, impressed by my abilities, only wanted to sign a contract with that leading company. Liu's father finally stopped coughing. Mr. Z is a smart man. I smiled, finally understanding everything clearly. The Liu Group did not have the same influence as the Ruin Group. Having offended the Ruin Group, they had no way to seek reconciliation. And knowing the Ruin Group appreciated my skills, They decided to use me as their bargaining chip. From the beginning to the end, I was nothing more than a tool for those in power, without any regard for my rights or trust. So, Mr. Z, what do you think? I have already ended my daughter's ridiculous marriage for you. Now, with just a nod from you, you can live a happy life with her. Liu Ryan looked at me with great hope, tears shimmering in her eyes. I looked at her and smiled, speaking each word clearly. Sorry, I never take someone else's leftovers. As soon as I finished speaking, Liu's father, in a fit of rage, threw a glass of water at Liu Ryan. Useless thing. All the trouble you've caused is your doing. Do you even know what kind of person you are? And you still dare to show off in front of me? Liu's father continued to berate, his eyes constantly glancing in my direction. Blood gushed instantly from Liu Ryan's forehead. Yet she still stubbornly raised her tear-streaked face, looking at me with defiance. Seeing her injured, my heart remained calm, like still water. I did not speak, I just coldly watched. Then I let out a cold laugh and turned to leave. Liu's father had never been so disregarded by a junior before. His long-standing sense of superiority was now replaced by frustration. He sprang up from the bed in a fit of rage, cursing wildly without control. For the first time, Liu Ryan defied her father just to catch up with me. She kept choking on her sobs, saying, "Wen Yuan, there is no longer any obstacle between us. Do you really not want to marry me?" "Then get lost," I retorted, still furious after the confrontation with her father. I was brimming with anger. Hearing this, Liu Ryan shook her head in pain. She tugged at my sleeve, repeating over and over, "Wen Yuan, you've never treated me like this. Is there really no chance for us? I've already divorced him. The one I've always loved is you. But I don't love you anymore. I don't believe it. I don't believe you, Wen Yuan. You loved me so much before. Have you forgotten all that?" Liu Ryan was completely agitated, confronting me with hysterical desperation. I pressed my lips together and looked at her. That was just in the past. The person I loved in my heart is already dead. My words were like a thorn, deeply piercing into Liu Ryan's heart. She held her head in pain, muttering, "No, it's not." My patience had completely run out. I had no mood to listen to her repentance. I pushed her away forcefully and turned to leave. Liu Ryan fell to the ground, screaming and crying behind me. I frowned deeply and walked away with long strides. After that day, I cut off all contact with Liu Ryan. I didn't make an effort to follow Liu Group's movements, but I still saw the latest news about them on TV. To appease the enraged Ruin Group, the Liu Group had to pay a hefty penalty fee. As a result, they had to lay off a large number of old employees to reduce costs. For a while, there was resentment and complaints throughout the Liu Group. Negative news about the Liu Group poured in like a tidal wave. If it weren't for the Liu Group's solid foundation, they would have nearly collapsed in this crisis. I didn't feel much about it. Everything was Liu Ryan's own doing. Just as I decided to lie low and plan for further studies abroad, somehow the Ruin Group got hold of my phone number. A high-level executive from the Ruin Group personally called and extended an olive branch to me. It would be a lie to say I wasn't tempted, but considering that joining the Ruin Group might mean having to deal with Liu Ryan again someday, I declined Mr. Ruan's kind offer. I contacted a professor from my university days to consult about the details of studying abroad. The professor was a bit surprised to learn that I wanted to further my studies overseas. He then regretted that I had missed the opportunity to join a major company initially, but finally reassured me that it wasn't too late to work hard now. "Wen Yuan, you have great potential. Your future achievements will surely surpass mine." The professor praised me like this, and I lived up to his expectations, passing the hellishly difficult entrance exam on the first try. I was accepted into an Ivy League school abroad. My professor, delighted, contacted all my classmates from that year. planning to host a grand banquet to celebrate. It was at this class reunion that I met Liu Ryan again. Seeing her again, I was stunned for a full minute without reacting. It was Liu Ryan who broke the silence first. "Wen Yuan, long time no see." She walked over, smiling at me. But that smile never reached her eyes. I pursed my lips and looked down, unsure of what to say. Seeing the way I was looking at her, she gave a self-mocking smile. "I must look terrible now, right?" "No, you just look a bit tired," I replied honestly. Perhaps it was because of how harsh I had been to her the last time we met, that even though I was calm while speaking to her now, her eyes suddenly turned red. "When you on, I thought you wouldn't want to say a word to me anymore," she said in a muffled voice, taking a step closer to me. I instinctively stepped back, frowning slightly. "You're overthinking it. As long as you keep your distance from me, I don't mind continuing to be old classmates with you." My evasive action caused Liu Ryan to freeze in place. The sadness in her eyes seemed deep enough to drown a person. I suddenly felt annoyed. "That's enough catching up," I said. "Let's go inside. The professor is already here." I left those words behind and entered the private room ahead of her. Amidst the many congratulations from my classmates, I gradually began to feel a bit drunk. After a few rounds of drinks, the professor, claiming he couldn't handle any more, left early. Everyone understood. The professor was giving us, a group of friends who hadn't seen each other in a long time, the space to have a wild time. We gathered together, talking about everything under the sun. Gradually, the conversation shifted towards me. I smiled and answered each question, but when they brought up how Liu Ryan and I were considered the golden couple, I couldn't help but let my expression turn cold. I raised my glass and made a toast in Liu Ryan's direction. "Zuding is the daughter of the Liu family. Someone like me isn't worthy of her, but I still want to thank her. Zuding is truly a good person. She taught me how to be an independent man." I downed the drink in one go, and then changed the topic. "Let's talk about something else. So our school beauty doesn't feel uncomfortable." Many people knew we had broken up, and seeing the atmosphere turn awkward, they all laughed and went along with my attempt to change the subject. But a few who had once pursued Liu Ryan, unaware of the details, kept pushing, encouraging us to play a couple's game. Seeing me put down my glass and no longer engage, Liu Ryan stepped in to help me out. "When Yuan has had a bit too much to drink tonight. Let's skip the games for now. Let's just chat casually." But everyone was still relentless. Under the continued pressure, Liu Ryan moved closer to me. Someone gave her a push, and she fell directly into my arms. I reflexively jumped up, but Liu Ryan quickly wrapped her arms around the back of my neck. Her eyes looked at me, pleading for help. The classmates around us started cheering, "Kiss," and she actually leaned in toward my lips. At that critical moment, my patience reached its limit. I pried her fingers away, stepping back to put some distance between us. With a dark expression, I said, "Enough! Liu Ryan, others may not know our situation and might cheer us on, but don't you know? WENYUAN ... double quotes." Liu Ryan bit her lower lip, looking at me pitifully. I ignored her, turning to everyone and saying, "Liu Ryan and I broke up a long time ago. The reason for the breakup was that she secretly registered her marriage with another man." Amidst the shocked expressions of the crowd, I spoke again. "Sorry. I think I've had too much to drink. I'm leaving for today. I couldn't stay in this suffocating space any longer." I pushed open the door and practically fled. I never thought Liu Ryan would become so clingy. I found myself missing the version of her who once looked down on everything with pride. "Liu Ryan, will you ever stop?" I halted in my steps. Annoyed, I spoke out. "Chasing after me like this will only make me hate you more." Tears streamed continuously down her face. She spoke in a small voice. "When you in, I know you're going abroad, and I know I can't keep you here. I just want to see you as much as I can while I still can, to look at you a few more times. I closed my eyes, swallowing all my emotions. I spoke relatively calmly. I saw Zuoza King's posts on social media. Haven't you two already made up and gone to the places we once planned to go together? That's really nice. I wish you both the best. No! Liu Ryan took an excited step closer to me, but when she noticed my expression turning cold again, she lowered her gaze and stepped back. I'm done with Zuoza King completely. He wasn't sick. He lied to me. It was all my fault, Wen Yuan. It's all my fault. I truly regret it. She silently cried, her shoulders shaking uncontrollably. If time could go back, I would have pulled her into my arms and comforted her softly. But sadly, the past can't be revisited. Liu Ryan, I no longer care about any of this. Let me go. And let yourself go, too. On the day I left for abroad, the city was draped in rain. I dragged my suitcase into the airport and caught a glimpse of Liu Ryan again from the corner of my eye. She was fully disguised, keeping a distance, not too far behind me. I sighed softly and walked into the lounge. She took a seat just behind me, quietly watching me through her sunglasses. I pretended not to notice. I put on my headphones and quietly waited to board. Before departure, I received an unexpected phone call. Mr. Lee? Mr. Z, no need to be so formal. Wouldn't it be more affectionate to call me Uncle Lee? Liu's father's tone lacked the sharpness it had some time ago. I glanced at Liu Ryan and then spoke calmly. We're not that close. Calling you Mr. Lee would be more polite. Hearing my response, Liu Ryan clenched her white dress tightly, noticing her small movement out of the corner of my eye. I remained indifferent and continued speaking calmly. Mr. Lee, if you have something to say, just say it directly. There was a sudden silence on the other end of the phone. Then I heard a sigh from Liu's father. Mr. Z, if I apologize to you now, would you consider giving Zuding another chance? I was about to speak, but Liu's father interrupted me. Don't be in a hurry to refuse. Let me finish. You and Zuding have been together for so many years. I admit I never looked up to you before, but I never intentionally got in your way. Zuding has been pampered since she was a child. I always thought that she was just playing around with your relationship. After all, you two are not from the same social class. But ever since she broke up with you, she has been utterly dispirited, and then her health started to decline. As a father, it truly breaks my heart to see this. If the things I did before displeased you, then I sincerely apologize to you here. I only hope that, for the sake of the time you two shared, you can give Zuding one more chance. I put my phone on speaker, stood up, and faced Liu Ryan. Mr. Liu, Miss Liu. Since that's the case, let me make it clear once again today. From now on, Liu Ryan and I are nothing more than strangers. There will be no other relationship between us. The day I left, Liu Ryan fainted in the airport lounge, crying. When she fell, her sunglasses dropped off, revealing her delicate face. All the men rushed over to check on her. Seeing this, I deleted the emergency number from my phone screen and left with my suitcase until the moment I was in line to board. My heart remained uneasy, constantly fearing that the Liu father and daughter would come after me again. It wasn't until I sat in my seat on the plane that my unsettled heart finally found peace. Looking at the blue sky and white clouds outside the window, I finally felt a sense of relief. After the plane landed, I breathed in the foreign air and suddenly felt an urge to cry. Sniffling, I suppressed the unease in my heart and walked toward the senior who came to pick me up with a smile. During my days abroad, I threw myself into intense studies, and all those distracting thoughts in my heart were completely replaced by the heavy coursework. If it weren't for that late-night phone call, that crossed the ocean to reach me. I might have completely forgotten about Liu Ryan. Is this Mr. Z? Miss Liu Ryan has just passed away. Before she died, she made me promise to contact you. She asked me to tell you, when you in the next life, I will never miss you again. The call ended. I was dazed for just a moment. After turning off the phone, I returned to sleep once again.